All right, guys. I think we'll go ahead and get rolling here. So appreciate everybody jumping in for tonight. Looks like we got a pretty good crowd in here for our discussion. My name is Andy Drake. I'm the senior group recruiting coach here for the baseball side of things. Very excited to have Aaron DelGiudice on here tonight with the Houston Astros to talk a little bit about just his background, his experience, and just kind of talk a little bit about some opportunities in baseball. So Aaron, thanks for joining. How you doing tonight?
Good, excited to be here.
Oh man, appreciate you taking. I know it's a busy time of year, I'm sure for you, so I appreciate you taking a little bit out of your evening here with us. So, if you guys have any questions, we should have a little bit of opportunity to get to some of that as well. So the chat and the Q&A will be open, so feel free to fire away in there. I don't want to promise I'll get to every question depending on how active it is, but if you throw some in there, we'll definitely grab some and give Aaron a chance to answer some questions for you guys here as well. And I will record tonight's discussion. We'll send it out afterwards, so all of you guys can check out anything if you feel like you missed something, or if you got to jump out early, we'll record and send it out. So check us out on social media. Got the X and the Instagram handles up there. I know a lot of you guys probably follow us there, but make sure you give us a follow. All right, so we're gonna have a conversation, some Q&A, and just real quick, guys, I want to highlight, take 10 seconds here. We got a few more workshops coming up here in February. We've got Division III workshop discussion later this week. I've got a couple other folks coming on. I've got Coach Joe Clancy from Eastern U coming on later in February. We've got some other folks coming on here, so you can see some of the workshops coming up. So screenshot this page, get signed up for them, guys. If you can't make them live, we'll send you the recording if you get signed up. All right. So, Aaron, let's get into this, man. Again, appreciate the time here tonight. So, if you don't mind, man, just kind of fill the guys in a little bit, first of all, just kind of on your, current position. And then I want to hear a little bit about your background, too. I want you to kind of give the guys a little bit of some of your journey as well. But just kind of tell the guys a little bit about your current position and kind of where you're at right now.
Yeah, thanks, Andy. So I'm Assistant Director of Player Personnel for the Houston Astros. What that role requires is I'm heavily involved in the evaluation aspect for any players that we bring into our organization at the professional level. So my main focus is, building the 40-man roster, the 26-man roster we put out there day in and day out. It's a year-round effort. We use a lot of different resources. A lot of different people are involved in the process. It's a very collaborative process, but the main function is to, put the best possible players in the organization so that we run the best talent out there every night.
That's amazing. So, like, when you guys have like how big is the team? I guess just curious, like when you kind of think about just in a broad sense, like how many people kind of have their sort of influence in some of that evaluation and so forth on the franchise there.
Yeah, so like our player personnel group is relatively small. We have 3 people in our group. Throughout the league, that can kind of vary, different teams are different sizes. But our group is really collaborative through the rest of the baseball operations group. So we work hand in hand with our player development department, our research and development department. We utilize our amateur scouting department and international scouting department that are focused more on bringing amateurs into the organization. So it's just a really collaborative effort, and that's why we're able to stay so small.
That's awesome. So, if you don't mind, give the guys a little bit of some background on just kind of where you're from, kind of how you got to, where you are, just kind of like early years in baseball. Obviously, we're a recruiting organization, and so I'd love to hear a little bit about kind of your college recruiting experience, and so forth, if you were pursuing that. So sometimes I think it's very helpful for guys to hear some of that. So a little bit of background, just kind of where you came from and kind of how you got to where you are.
Yeah, so I grew up in the Northeast. I'm from Connecticut originally, suburbs of New Haven, small town, nothing special. Played a lot of different sports growing up. I played basketball, soccer, baseball, obviously. Baseball was the one that always stuck out. Really got immersed in it, I'd probably say around middle school. I'd go home and I'd watch the Yankee games every night. I know what time they were playing every single day, be locked into those games. And that's when I really kind of started to spend more of my time playing baseball. I got involved with travel teams. So I played, I remember middle school, I'd go to my middle school practice. I'd go to a travel ball practice team. And then there was a weekend league I played in too. So I was playing 3 teams at the same time. So that's where, my skills really grew. My interest in the game really grew. Got to meet, people from different skill levels, learn more about the game, got a lot of really good coaching. Moved into high school, didn't make varsity my freshman year. Made the team my sophomore year, was a starting pitcher on the staff of the team that year, and got to play with some really good players on that team. We had 2 guys go D1 that year that were seniors, and that was kind of the first eye-opening thing for me of hey, maybe I can play at the next level. And so that offseason, I kind of started to move into what can I do to get recognized. And I actually partnered up with a recruiting firm similar to NCSA. Baseball Factory was big back then.
Sure.
Started
Yeah.
getting my name out on some of those sites to get some exposure. Ended up getting invited to a showcase up at SUNY Purchase in New York, upstate New York.
Mm-hmm.
Went up there through, did enough to get invited to a showcase event down in Florida
Mm-hmm.
for December. So I went down to that Dodger World, or what do they call it? It's not Dodger World, but
Well, I think I kind of know what you're talking about. Isn't there like a Jackie Robinson field and so forth down there, or is this a different facility?
I'm not sure if it's that. It's in Vero
Yeah.
Beach. There might be.
Okay.
Yeah, it might be the same
Yeah.
one. Yeah. So
Yeah.
I went down
Yeah.
there, threw in a showcase down there. First inning I go out. I've been training all the time, like trying to get my feel up, trying to, stay ready for a December showcase. And the elbow started barking,
Ah.
7 pitches in. So I got pulled off the field. Remember like crying in the dugout. So like this is the opportunity, screwed it up. Ended up getting it imaging on it. They found bone chips in my elbow. They said I could either have surgery or rest and see how it recovers. I opted for rest because spring junior season was coming up.
Mm-hmm.
Rested. It went down, but I missed most of that season. I was able to come back at the end of the season, played over the summer, but that was like the big recruiting year, is that junior year where everybody,
Yep.
the colleges come out, and I wasn't on the field much. So it was a pretty big setback in my recruiting journey.
Mm-hmm.
And I had to do a lot of effort on my own to get my name out there. At that point, I recognized like I wasn't going to get to a D1 school, so I started focusing on D2s and D3s up in the Northeast. And I actually ended up going down to the University of Tampa
Mm-hmm.
for a campus visit. I knew about their baseball program only because I grew up a huge Yankee fan, and Tino Martinez was a University of Tampa graduate.
Yep. Yep.
And so I knew of UT because of that. And it was just on my list of like, I want to see what this place is about. So I just kind of went down there on my own, talked to the coaches while I was down there, and ended up deciding to pass on. I had a couple offers from some smaller schools, and I decided to
Sure.
pass on those offers to go walk on at UT. I chose the warm weather. I want to play baseball year round. So I went down to Florida, walked on at UT, and decided to see what happens. And walked on that freshman fall. Threw a bullpen, took some swings, took some ground balls. I remember I airmailed a couple of the throws on the ground balls. Like, dang it, I'm not making this team. But posted the rosters a couple weeks later. I'd made the team. That's when I moved just to pitching. And I spent 4 years down at UT pitching and just kind of worked my way up there and, got to win a national championship my last year, 2013. I was not a huge contributor, but I got the experience and a lot of valuable insights along the way there.
Well, and I love that story. I know a lot of our guys here, probably quite a few guys listening in here, maybe from the north, from the northeast. I grew up in Ohio, coached in Michigan, right? So some of those northern climates, and a lot of guys have that goal of kind of getting south like that. And it is very competitive, right? Like, so kind of talk about like, even though it's like you can kind of know on paper, maybe a little bit, do a little research, but how was that jump, man, from going like from Connecticut to, that powerhouse D2 down in Florida and sort of the guys that were on that roster in comparison to kind of what you had gone up against up until that point?
It was eye-opening.
Yeah.
I just remember, the size of people, like everybody, large, they threw hard, they hit the ball far. I was like, and I felt I wanted to be a small fish in a big pond, and I went down there and I was a small fish in a big pond. It was like, dang, I gotta work.
Yeah.
So that's, before that, I'd never been big on getting in the gym. That was a huge eye-opening experience for me. Like, you better get in the gym, you better add some weight, you better eat right, you better add muscle because you're just not going to compete. Because I didn't throw hard enough. I was in the mid 80s when I went down there. Back then, the pitching development wasn't what it is today. I went out there and started just long tossing every day. That's the way I knew to build arm strength. Started doing that every day, got up into the upper 80s enough to, get myself some innings.
Yeah.
The entire thing was just, it's a different world down there. And you get to meet people from, all over the place. Down south, they've been playing year round their whole lives. They've been playing against better players their whole lives. And it's such an advantage that, people up in the cold don't get. It's definitely a disadvantage. You got to work harder. You gotta try harder if you're coming from those backgrounds.
Absolutely. So, we talked about the recruiting journey a little bit there, but also give some insight to the guys in, kind of what it meant for you to like find the right fit for your college experience. I mean, obviously Tampa, it's a really good school. It's in a really good location. So there was other factors I'm sure too that played into it. You mentioned you had some other offers and things too. Again, just briefly, talk a little bit about how you kind of came to that decision, how you kind of weighed the different factors for yourself personally and kind of making that college decision.
Yeah, I mean, the thing in my mind at the time was I wanted to try and use my college experience to get to the professional level, right? I
Yeah.
still had aspirations of that. And, the college coaches there at UT, they had played professional players. They had the track
Hmm.
record of developing professional players. So that was a huge thing for me of, I could go to smaller schools up in the north where their coaches might not have that knowledge base or, have that
Hmm.
experience themselves. So that was a huge motivating factor for me to kind of just take the walk-on route and get around people that had been there and done that and
Hmm.
knew how to, help others get there. So that was probably the biggest thing. Like you mentioned, like I wanted to challenge myself. A lot of it
Yeah.
was
Yeah.
like I wanted to make sure I, took on some adversity. Took on a different path. Didn't want to take the safe route. So, that screamed, go to Florida, walk on, push yourself. See how you stack up against, it's not the best, but the ones that are better than you.
Yeah, absolutely.
So those are
Absolutely.
the two biggest things that motivated me, and just who I am and what I value.
Yeah.
Uh, those were things that I was seeking out in my process.
Absolutely. And just having that experience of being a college athlete, being a college baseball player, I'm sure was a huge factor just in like kind of building your resume too. And, the experience you had, you mentioned like, hey, maybe I wasn't like the top dude on the squad or anything like that, but still just having that experience. So, I mean, and I want to get into a little bit more about kind of how you got to where you are today, but just kind of speak to sort of the experience of being a college athlete, regardless of maybe even the role. How big of a role that played for you and kind of helping you sort of kind of springboard you into what you ended up getting to?
Yeah, as I mentioned, like my thought at the time as a high school kid was I want to go there to learn how to become a professional player. And what I ended up taking out of the experience was how to be a professional, not a
Sure.
professional baseball player, but just how to be a professional.
Hmm.
The things I learned about, work ethic, about time management, like being a student athlete, figuring out how to manage your time is key. You're gonna have a full
Hmm.
course load. I picked up a minor, so I had my major, my minor. You have a social life you want to be a part of in college. You have all of these distractions. You have all these things that take away from your time. But if you want to be an athlete and you want to be a competitive athlete, that's a huge chunk of your time every week. So figuring out how to do what you need to do on the field, make practice, get your school work done, keep good grades.
Hmm.
The work ethic and the time management skills that you take from that process are you know set you up for a lot of future success if you take them seriously.
Absolutely. And people who are doing the hiring or looking for people, they love a lot of the aspects of being a college athlete and what that brings for potential, whether it is interns or applicants for their different positions, which I'm sure you have found in your experience. So let's talk a little bit more now. All right. So, you finish up your college career. All right. You're in your position now. You maybe wouldn't have evaluated yourself as a potential guy to sign for for the Astros there. So all right, time to move into my next thing. So kind of talk about after college or even maybe even during school, what were some of the things that you did, as far as academically or even like maybe internship wise that you picked up and did, and then what were some of your first experiences right out of college? Then
Yeah, so that was I ended up becoming a sports management major at UT. I didn't
yeah.
know that one was existed when I went to school and they asked you what
Hmm.
you want your major to be. I didn't know. I had to go research and I saw something that said sports in it. And I always kind of thought like business sounds interesting. And I was like, sounds perfect. Let's do this. So I kind of picked up the major blind, and it was a huge leapfrog for
Hmm.
my future career. In the sense that Tampa, in and of itself, the location is such a sports hotbed. So there's a lot
Hmm.
of access to a lot of different sports organizations, and the sports management major, brings you out. We go and visit different organizations. Was able to see what different roles were. They take you on tours of the different facilities, the different schools, the different teams in the area.
Hmm.
And then they force you to go get internships and get out and get career experience. And I was able to land a couple of different internships in my time at UT. I interned for the Tampa Bay Rays in their
Hmm.
state operations department. Kind of got to see the behind the scenes of how the events get put on. What all the people are doing in the background. The guys serving you food, the medical
Hmm.
staff that's on call, the ushers helping people get to their seats. All the different things that go into putting on an event. And the behind the scenes view of it. That was a pretty awesome experience. And then I went on and I actually did an internship for ESPN Radio. So I just got to see kind of the media side of it, the personality side of it, and just access a different view of the game, or of sports in general, and learn about a different side that I hadn't before. And then actually I went on and interned for both the Toronto Blue Jays and the New York Yankees in their spring training box offices. So I was selling tickets for spring training games. It was just whatever experience I could get to be around sports, to be around baseball, to learn what the professional side looks like. There were so many opportunities in Tampa, and I was really glad that that program pushed me out to go, make the most of them, to go get out there and start building a network, start building career experiences. Because when you get out in that, job search, especially in sports where it's incredibly competitive, it's so hard to separate yourself. And any experience you have is a huge separator that you can kind of point to.
And when guys are looking at their college opportunities, that's a big thing to look at too, is like what may be in the area, right? If they're looking at maybe whether it is going into a sports career or just whatever it may be, looking at what's around, right? And again, this is no, slight to somewhere, but if there's not much around at a particular college, but you want to go into the field like you're going into, it's a little harder if there's not stuff around you, right?
Yeah, that's where, this wasn't what I was thinking at the time when I made the decision to go to Tampa, but most of the other schools I was looking at were, suburban communities, smaller cities, not much, access to professional organizations. And, that ended up being a pretty, I think, huge decision for me that I wasn't even cognizant of in the moment. But being in a city where there's opportunities, or just, it doesn't even need to be a city, but like a lot of major college towns, or just different areas where there's access to different experiences, different people that can help you get your foot in the door, when you're trying to get your first job.
And even if it's a smaller town that's got some minor league teams or things like that, just those kind of opportunities to get the foot in the door and experience some of that. Talk a little bit more about that. All right, so internships during school. What kind of got you into sort of your more sort of professional career? What were some of the steps you began to take as far as moving further into sort of making this a career for yourself?
Yeah, so the internships in school were just the first stepping stone.
Yeah.
The path got a lot more winding from there. Getting into, the baseball operations side or any team operations side in any sport, it's incredibly competitive. The amount of people, the amount of resumes we get daily is ridiculous. We post an internship position, we get thousands of applications. So when I was on the other side of this, I did not know that, right? I was like, oh, I play baseball, I got a couple internships, this will be smooth sailing, I'll roll right in. So I got out of school, like, all right, baseball career's over. I got to figure out how to get a job. I wanted to stay in Tampa. I really, really enjoyed Tampa. I had a lot of good friends there. It's been home for me for 4 years. It had become, my parents actually live there now. They came down, they left. My parents now live in Sarasota. So it was like home. But I wanted to, excel in my career. I knew I was driven. I knew I wanted to find success. So I kept my application search pretty wide. I ended up interviewing for a position in the Australian Baseball League. I was going to go work in Perth, which is on the west coast of Australia, and work with their baseball team down there. So I was a finalist for that. And then I happened to hear about a company called Stats up in Chicago, where they, just the job was basically just to go chart baseball games and football games. And I'd literally watch the games and I'd say, what was the pitch type? What was the velocity of the pitch? And what was the location of the pitch? And I would just track that for a game every night. I could do 2 games. We would do NPB, the Japanese League games at midnight before. So I ended up choosing that experience over the Australian one. So I went to Chicago, worked for Stats for a year, watched an insane amount of baseball. I can't even tell you the hours and hours and hours of baseball footage I watched. Met some really, really cool people, a lot of them that had similar interests. They did a lot of like hiring people fresh out of school. I saw you have Tyler Chamberlain Simon coming on in a couple of weeks. He was one of the people that worked there at the time. Dominic Harris, who put me in touch with you, worked there at the time.
One of my colleagues here, yep.
And my current boss, Matt Hogan at the Houston Astros, was also there at the time. So the network that experience got me was huge because there were so many hungry young people that just wanted to learn more about baseball. So I did that for a year, but it was a grind, and the winters in Chicago sucked. I hated the negative 30-degree wind chills, and I knew I wanted to get back like on the team side of baseball. So I went down to the winter meetings in Orlando in 2013. The baseball winter meetings, they throw on a job fair every year. where anybody can kind of come in and apply for jobs and network and meet people. And some of the guys I worked with at Stats told me about it. I didn't even know about it. They told me about it. They told me they're going down. I was like, yeah, I'm gonna go to Orlando and see what happens.
Mm-hmm.
So I went to the job fair, started throwing resumes around. They just literally will post a job, and there's a bin, and you throw your resume in the bin and see if they call you back. Basically, it's kind of the wild wild west. And this is for jobs, throughout minor league baseball. This is a lot of like entry level,
Sure.
minor league baseball jobs, some major league baseball jobs, but get your foot in the door type positions. One of the positions I applied for through my resume down for was media relations position with the Yankees, internship with the Yankees in their media relations department. And I got a call for it while I was there in Orlando. And they literally did interviews starting at 9 in the morning, finishing at 5 at night. I got the 4:45 time slot. So they lined up 20 straight interviews. I was the last one of the day. I sat down with Lauren Moran and Michael Margolis, who were, I think the manager and director of media relations for the Yankees at the time.
Mm-hmm.
And I could tell they were absolutely exhausted. They had been
interviewing
all day, just fried. So they asked me like a question or two, and I could just see them checking. I was like, guys, I don't want to be rude here, but I can tell that like you're not going to take much out of this. Here's my business card. If you want to call me another time when you guys are fresher, happy to. If not, best of luck.
Mm-hmm.
And in this moment, they kind of were appreciative, like, wow, that's awesome. Like, thank you. Like, nobody ever gives business card. Nobody like really has the, awareness to see the situation there. But that was the end of the day, and I never expected to hear from them again. And turns out I went back to Chicago, was planning on just staying at Stats. And like 2 weeks later, I get a call and they said they had somebody back out. So they had made an offer to somebody else to come be the media relations intern, and they backed out. So they had remembered my interaction, called me up and asked if I was still interested. It would just be for spring training. So I'd go to Tampa for spring training, be the intern for media relations for spring, and that would be it. It would just be a 6-week position. Hey, I get to go back to Tampa and it's the Yankees. I'm not saying no. So I went down to Tampa, took on the role. The role was incredibly rewarding and incredibly challenging. I got to be around, so this was Masahiro Tanaka comes over from Japan, pitches for the Yankees that year. Alex Rodriguez is suspended for steroids for the year, and Derek Jeter announces before the season it's going to be his last season. So heck of a time to be in media relations for the Yankees.
Yeah.
Really, really big storylines going on. But the job itself was absolute grind. We did a lot of paperwork. We did something called clips, where every morning, we'd come in at 4 in the morning and we'd have to go through every single newspaper and every single website and every article written about the Yankees. We'd have to put into a package of, a newsletter, if you will, make 30 copies and send them out around all the executives in the front office so they knew everything that was going on or everything that was in the meeting. Really, really taxing, but really cool experience. Went down there for 6 weeks for Florida, and they liked what I did enough where they asked me to come to New York for the full season. It was basically a tryout. I didn't realize that, but I got called in the office like second to last day of camp and asked, "Do you want to go to New York with us?" So now I'm 22 years old, and I'm like, all right, I'm going to go move to New York City. I got no idea where to live, how to afford it. Went up there, ended up staying in a garage apartment with what ended up being the Yankees assistant strength coach. I got put in with him out of the middle of nowhere, who's turned into a lifelong friend. Actually, I was at his wedding in Puerto Rico a couple years ago, and huge source for me. Just one of many of the random encounters that end up having a large impact on your career and life. But went up to New York, did the whole year internship up there. Another great experience. At the end of the year, they were going to hire. So there's 4 media relations interns throughout the season. They were going to hire one at the end of the year full time. And, kind of talked to him a little bit about it. I remember Jason Zillow, who oversaw the whole department, called me in at the end. It's like, "You don't really want to work in media, do you?" Saw right through me. You could tell that I was more interested in the baseball side. So did not get the offer there. Still stung, really stung, but got that experience with the Yankees and went back to the drawing board the next offseason. So going into 2015 season, did the same thing. I went back to the winter meetings. That year they were in San Diego. A little bit more experienced, understood a little bit more what it took to get on the baseball side. A lot of like reaching out to people beforehand, trying to set up meetings before you get there with, cold calling or cold emailing contacts throughout the league. Was able to set up a couple meetings and was able to get an internship with the Baltimore Orioles for their AAA team in Norfolk, Virginia. So now lead pack up the car again, and we go down to Norfolk, Virginia. And that job was a video job, very common entry position on the baseball side. And you chart all of your games, you collect the video on all of your games, and it's a resource for the players. So worked out the clubhouse, was able to kind of get around players, get around coaches, and that's where I really kind of took the next step of understanding what working in baseball looks like, at least on the team operations side. So really, really cool experience. Met a lot of really cool people. Funnily enough, we just signed Christian Walker to play first base for the Houston Astros. Christian Walker was on that team in Norfolk, Virginia. So here we are 10 years later.
Full circle, huh?
But did that, for a year in Norfolk. Had a great experience, and then finally caught the break that off season where went back to the winter meetings, and I met on with the Houston Astros and got hired as a coach. So I actually got to coach for our AAA and high A teams out in California. My first 2 years doing that with the Astros, and then moved to Houston right after they won the World Series in 2017. Been in the office ever since. It's been awesome. A long, winding road, but
it's quite a journey. And I think if there a couple takeaways I have listening to that is you never really know where you're going. Sometimes you're always just kind of like looking at that next best step sometimes, and then just kind of seeing where things go. Like we may not always know where the end is, but just kind of making sure that you're making good decisions in the moment, and that are going to help you potentially long term. But also, all of those late nights, right? Those grinding nights. I mean, those are experiences that you can't get anywhere else, right? I mean, sitting there and just watching games and charting and doing that kind of stuff, not everybody just does that on their just normal daily life, right? So like sometimes you have to have those experiences to kind of build up, the reps to get where you're going. But so been with the Astros now for quite a few years. Do you kind of envision, hopefully just continuing maybe the opportunities to move up there? Do you kind of see yourself kind of staying on that front office side? Ever see, visions of maybe getting back on the field? Just what's kind of your maybe 5-year type of plan that you maybe have kind of thought of?
Yeah, I mean, the sustainability of working in a baseball front office is fleeting.
Sure.
You never know how long you're going to last. You never know when leadership's going to decide to make changes or go in a different direction. I've seen a lot of people I've worked with, move on or get let go. So you never really know where it's going to go. But for now, I'm very happy with my position. I continue to hope to grow. I definitely think there's a path to, a assistant GM, or if I'm ever fortunate enough, general manager position. So for now, like I really enjoy what I do. So I'm going to keep going down this path. But I definitely have a fallback plan in place of getting back into coaching. I really, really found that to be really rewarding. The ability to, work with people and work with kids or young players and help set them up for growth in their careers or future success. Like that's super rewarding day in and day out. So it's definitely in the back of my mind of something I could pursue down the road.
Oh, heck yeah, no doubt about it. All right, so guys, if there's any questions or anything that kind of comes to mind, I'm gonna ask Aaron a few questions from him about some advice for y'all. But start to fire away if you have any questions about things. But one thing I wanted to have you sort of give some guys the thoughts on here tonight is, if some guys in here are thinking about a career in sports, in going in, maybe baseball path, or it could be, maybe a variety of directions. But as you kind of have some, kind of thoughts there about, or do you have some thoughts around like what, some things they can be doing now to maybe be doing some early kind of building, even though a lot of the resume is probably beyond high school, perhaps. So what are some things they can kind of do to maybe lay a little bit of a foundation as they're kind of thinking about a career in sports there?
Yeah, I mean, I think the first thing you can do when you are in high school is just watch a ton of the sport you're interested in. I'm assuming most guys in color baseball, it's like just watch a ton of baseball. Watch the MLB games. If you're a college fan, watch the college games. Or I'd recommend, even if you're not that aware of what college baseball looks like, watch. It's on TV now. You can stream it, whatever. Like just watching a ton of baseball. You're going to learn more players. You're going to learn more coaches. You're going to learn more about the X and O's of the game, which is going to set you up for success if your pursuits are, on impacting a team down the road and whatever path you may take. I think that's the easiest thing you can do when you're in high school is just, it's not super taxing, but it will be rewarding down the road. Like I said, growing up, I watched every Yankees game, but then really, really took off was at Stats where I watched so much baseball. So it took me a job experience to get there, but that's something anybody can do. I know sitting down for 3 hours to lock in a game is tough, but that's it. If you watch 3 innings one night, do it every night. That's just one way to you're going to learn so much that way. So that's the easiest thing I think anybody can do right now.
For sure. And I know that, through your experience, and this is probably a good thing maybe for guys to hear a little bit as well tonight, a little bit more about is, you're obviously very fortunate now to be in a position where a lot, your job is evaluating players and really kind of on the field kind of stuff. But it took a little while to get there, right? You had to sell some tickets. You had to do, some of those things. So kind of talk to the guys here about kind of the importance of being open and willing to kind of do some of those, maybe not up front, behind the scene kind of things, kind of the willingness to do that, maybe to get to, some of those things down the road, how important it is for them to kind of have that willingness to do that.
Yeah, you kind of touched on it before of the long winding road, and it's like you don't know where it's going to lead. So it's just taking yes and saying yes to new experiences, new opportunities, and making the most of them, and not necessarily taking them as I'm going to do this experience because that's going to get me to the next position, which is going to get me where you want. It's just building your life story of like I said, it's not just about the career growth. I've met so many of my best friends just by saying yes to an experience I didn't, think I would. I've gained access to so many people, so many different things, ways of thinking. That's helped me grow as a person. So it's just being open to new experiences that's going to make you grow and make you a better person and more happy in your life. So it's great when the fortune works out and you get to where you want in your career, but the motives should just be I want to learn, I want to grow, I want to do something different. This thing interests me, this opportunity, this position, this whatever. I'm interested. Let me go try it out and see where it takes.
Be the best version of whoever you are at that moment, right? I mean, if you demonstrate to the people around you that you're giving it your all, that, like you said, that builds your network too, because people will see what kind of a worker you are, what kind of person you are. So I think that's great advice. All right, somebody just threw a really good question in the chat box here. I think this is a good one for maybe some advice here. So have some career here about pursuing perhaps a broadcasting or media kind of career specifically. So you did a little bit of the media relations, you said, kind of talk a little bit about that side of things, like just sort of your experience and, some of the challenges of kind of getting the foot in the door in that media and broadcasting side of things.
Yeah, the broadcasting field is as competitive, if not more competitive, than field players. There are, I'm not the expert in the area, but what I know about it is there's a ton of people interested in it, and it's just super hard because what a lot of guys have to do is talking in an empty room all day or talking to nobody is super challenging, and it's awkward and it's uncomfortable, and you really got to push through that. So what I have been fortunate enough is to meet a lot of the broadcasters from the minors, which is where the broadcast majors come from. And those guys, it's a tough grind. If you go sit in whatever, minor league park for 140 games and you are usually by yourself, there's no color analyst usually on the minor league side. And, they broadcast every game and they have to come up with stories, and they know nobody's listening or watching these games, or very few people are, and they still have to try and, figure out their voice and figure out how to make it entertaining. So it's a really, that takes a hustle, that takes a grind, that takes a lot of commitment, and you have to be really comfortable. It's a more isolated position because there's only one broadcaster or two broadcasters per team. So you're more alone, you're more on your own. So you have to be a really outgoing, sociable person, and you have to really grind at what you do. They're really special people that, end up Joe Buck on TV, or, pick any of the guys that, really make it. It takes a lot of work ethic and a lot of, special qualities. So I'm always very impressed by those guys that do it. And then on the media relations side, or if, you're interested in becoming a reporter or, working with reporters, that's a lot about writing and networking. It's you really have to take an interest in writing. You have to be a really strong communicator, both verbally and, written. So, if you're into those skills, that's definitely something you could pursue, and it's just practice, right? It's you can get a blog, you can get online and write whatever you want and put it out there for the world to give you feedback on. It's a beautiful thing about the internet now is if there's something you want to do, go do it, put it on the internet and ask people for feedback. Ignore the haters, take the positive, and continue to grow yourself.
I love that advice. That's great advice. Now, what about, you said, it's been a while since you played in college. It's been even longer for myself, man. So I think back to even your days and my days, of course, we didn't have games being streamed all the time. There are more opportunities, right, for guys to get maybe some experience in broadcasting, through some of those things, right? The students who are able to do broadcasting. So maybe even in the high school level, more games are sort of streamed and stuff. So there's probably some opportunities there, right, that they could maybe pursue to, maybe get a little bit more of that experience earlier on too.
For sure. And, that's where,
Yeah.
like, you can go to your high school and you can go just volunteer. Like, hey, like,
Yeah.
let me go, bro. Maybe it's not being done right now, but you want to
Yeah.
do it. Just go tell them and ask them, like, hey, I'll volunteer my time. Like, I don't need to get paid. I just want to do this. I think it'd be cool.
Hmm.
Like I
Hmm.
said, take those experiences and run with them. It's not always about how much money am I making or what's it going to
Yeah.
lead me to. It's just, this is an experience I want to take on. Nobody's doing it right now. Like, let me go ask. Let me go knock on a door, pick up a phone, make a call,
Yeah.
make myself uncomfortable and see where it leads me.
Absolutely. And it's not always gift wrapped for you like Tom Brady, right? Like most of these guys have to like grind and grind and grind before they get to, some level like that as far as behind the mic, right?
Yeah. Go for the Tom
Awesome.
Brady.
Yeah, yeah, just go be the greatest quarterback of all time, and you'll probably be able to get a gig. How about so some guy, you obviously have this experience, and you're kind of on the other side of it, I'm sure. But what about like the sports agent kind of stuff? Have what about some experience maybe you've seen there, or if someone is maybe looking at that as a potential path, the sports management side of things in college can kind of branch off in a lot of different ways, right? So, what kind of just kind of advice from your experience would be sort of some things that guys who are maybe looking at the sports agent side of things could kind of be thinking about?
Yeah, another really fun role. I get to work with agents a lot.
Yeah.
I'm on the phone with them all the time. So a lot of different backgrounds there. They come from all over. The biggest thing there is a lot of them have legal backgrounds. So you
Mm.
probably have to have some sort of interest in law. It has to
Mm.
develop at some point in your life, which is really actually quite fascinating. How some of these contracts and the language, some of these contracts,
Yeah.
negotiations, that's a huge other aspect, is negotiations. It's like positive debate. I really enjoy that aspect. I love negotiating. I
Hmm.
love debating. So that's a really, really fun aspect of like those roles, is that's what they get to do constantly. Of just, I'm luckily enough and privileged enough to listen to Scott Boras get on the phone with Dana Brown and hear some of their conversations, and just the way
Sure.
they go back and forth with each other is quite fascinating. So another one where like your ability to communicate verbally written is going to be huge skills
Yeah.
that you're going to want to look to develop. But super rewarding. Obviously you get to I think the best part about the agency side is a lot of these guys will build like familial relationships with their
Mm.
clients.
Hmm.
So, these players become part of their families. Like they're
Yeah.
so invested in them. That's I think we know about the Scott Borases and the big names, but there's so many smaller agents that recruit these guys when they're in college still and get them,
Hmm.
before they go into the draft, and try and give them advice going to the draft, and really get to know their parents and their families and what makes these guys tick. So it seems like a really, really rewarding field.
Hmm.
That you get to really develop some really strong relationships with some really cool people.
And when you guys are negotiating, you probably feel that like, yeah, this guy is like his family. It's a different level of just kind of like, I'm working for this guy. It's probably, you guys see that every day when you're talking with those guys too, I'm sure.
For sure. Yeah. I mean, they can get defensive about it. Like, you
Absolutely.
say something about their player, like, hey, I don't think this guy's that good because X, Y, Z reason. Like, whoa, whoa, whoa.
Oh man, that's awesome. So real quick, guys, I know there's a few other questions about that. We're going to get to those. I just want to knock out a couple things real quick before anybody who might want to jump out gets out of here. So just a couple quick reminders, guys. Keep an eye out for our roster openings, matches and evaluations we can update. We'll reach out to coaches on your behalf. Just some reminders. I know a lot of you guys are familiar with that. Contact info is up on the screen. And just real quick, man, again, Aaron has been awesome. We'd love to get some feedback. So I'm going to throw a link to a survey in the chat box, guys, before anybody jumps out of here. 30 seconds, man. Click on that survey link. We'd love to get some feedback. Hopefully tonight's discussion has been helpful. And we'll continue to be as we have a few more minutes here. But appreciate any feedback on that survey link, guys. But another couple really good questions here, Aaron. So somebody asked, so looking back, so now kind of put yourself kind of looking back, what's some advice that you wish someone would have told you, like as you were starting your college experience or college career? Sounds like you made some decisions, to do some certain things, but what's some advice that maybe you wish you would have known as a 16, 17-year-old before you made that college decision?
I think, the biggest advice I wish I'd gotten looking back was really know yourself and know
Mm-hmm.
know what your end goal is, right? Like, what
Yeah.
are the distractions you think are going to get in your way? So I look back at my college experience, and obviously I chose the big school or the big
Mm-hmm.
city and that lifestyle. But I also think that was a distraction in my playing career. I think there were a lot of different things that kept me from maybe putting in that extra, time on the practice field or
Mm-hmm.
time in the weight room to take the career to the next step. So that would be the thing that I would challenge each of you guys to inwards look and know, what do you want to get. If
Mm-hmm.
playing is your sole passion, make sure that is your priority. I know the huge part is always, how do you balance it with like being a student athlete and the odds of going pro are so slim. Um, and like I will never ever say you should not take your school seriously. And I don't want that to be the message here. But when you look at the guys that do get to pro, like they really, really, really focus on their careers, their athletic careers when they're in college, not at the expense usually of their schoolwork, but at the expense of their social lives. So it's like if you get there and you really want to get to the next level, you're gonna, you're gonna do your classwork and then you're gonna live at the baseball field or at the weight room. And if you really value that social experience, then it's like, all right, I got to put even more work into the classroom because maybe the baseball isn't going to end up being there for me. So it's knowing what your goals are and what you're trying to get out of it, whether it's to get professional, become a prep player, it's to find a job, it's to like have the best college experience overall. You want to balance all three. And it's just knowing which of those kind of paths you really want to take.
Yeah, that's great advice. And I think because everybody's going to have different thoughts on kind of what the right experience, and there's no right or wrong answer to that, right? Like everybody's experience is going to be, the best experience for them. And that's something that everybody has to kind of figure out going into it. So maybe a similar vein here with this question, but maybe just kind of more baseball specifically, kind of going back to like, say, for like a sophomore year, what's some advice that you might have for, or if you could go back and think about like and give your own, yourself some advice as a, say a sophomore, 15-year-old as far as baseball goes, what would be some things that, now that you have all of your experience, evaluating guys and so forth, that you would say, hey, this is something you probably need to do that would help you even more than maybe I would have known in those days.
Yeah, I mean, it's getting your name out there, right? To get yourself in the college landscape. How do you get colleges to know you exist, right? How do you get colleges interested in you come to play for them? I think NCSA is a great tool for you. A lot of it, like I see it every day. Like we will find you. Like if you're good enough, we will find you. I know that's kind of a cliche thing that's out there, but if you're a good enough player, you will be found. I promise you. It might take a little bit longer than you like, but so that's the biggest thing you could do is focus on making yourself better. If you're focused on making yourself better, make yourself a better player. And that goes above and beyond what you're doing on the field. That's how you're eating. That's how you're sleeping. That's how you're working out. That's are you taking care of all the other things in your life so that you can perform your best when you're out in that field and people are watching you. If you're doing those things, if you want to play college sports, you make yourself a talented enough player and you really look around the field and say, I'm the best player out here, no matter what field I'm playing on. If that's how you keep focusing yourself, like you will get to where you want to be.
Yeah, keep working hard. Now, I kind of thought of this kind of question. So, how has your guys' evaluation changed a little bit on kind of how you? So, over the last few years, obviously things that have happened with like shortening of the MLB draft, right? Fewer rounds now, maybe a little more emphasis on college guys, perhaps, maybe less of the we're going to take the chance on the high school guys sort of thing. So it just sort of like just for your perspective, like how has that changed, do you think? Maybe not, maybe more broadly, even just to kind of across professional baseball, how players are evaluated and what type of players, seem to be a little bit more maybe sort of attractive to the pro scouts maybe than we looked at maybe 8 years ago. How has that maybe changed a little bit?
For sure. I mean, college is everything now. The guys that are getting drafted out of high school are, the cream of the cream. If you're not a top 10 high school player in the country, I would probably tell you to go to college. If it's that beneficial to you, you're going to grow, you're going to develop better. The professional landscape is really narrowing for, high school guys. It's getting tougher and tougher. And you're going to get developed way better in college. You're going to have a way better experience. You're going to move way faster if one of the pros come in. You're going to have, the fallbacks of the college education for other career paths. So, the high school to pro baseball player is becoming more and more rare. It's just the way the system's going. And I think it's good for the kids. I think it's good for the student athletes. I think you're going to be better off going to college and developing yourself as a more well-rounded person, and the baseball will still be there at the end.
Yeah. And the trickle down with that is that every level of college baseball is getting even better, right? So like the Division I teams have dudes that probably 10 years ago wouldn't even be there. They'd be out in like South Dakota playing single A ball, but now they're in the SEC or the ACC, right? So like all that trickle down happens. So, you would say like go play college ball, like almost probably like regardless of division level, right? Just go find the best fit, the best college experience. Because as you said, if you develop, like you guys are probably going to discover guys, not just from the top Division I programs, but any of the top college players, correct?
Yeah, I don't care what school you're at, you'll be
Yeah.
found. Like,
Yeah.
and like junior colleges are a huge, huge
Yeah.
opportunity
Yeah.
that don't get enough respect, or at least I didn't when I was going through
Mm-hmm.
this process. I
Mm-hmm.
didn't hear much about junior colleges, especially up north. I think they're a little bit
Yeah.
more popular in the south.
Mm-hmm.
But they're a huge, huge opportunity. You know, if you don't know where you want to go yet, it's usually only 2 year commitments. You don't have to make that 4 year commitment. Just go. You really get to play and focus, and you can start right away. You know, the average age of a college roster is getting older and older because
Mm-hmm.
guys are staying in college. There's more guys in college. So if you want to start as a freshman at a D1 school, you could be really, really good, and you still might not.
Mm-hmm.
It's getting harder and harder. So yeah, finding those other schools to go to, that's going to give you playing time, going to develop you. If you go play and you develop and you get better, you know you're
Yeah.
going to be seen no matter what. There's a guy, you know, a couple guys drafted last year that went top couple rounds that were from totally off the radar schools, not the ones you think
Sure.
of. It wasn't the Floridas and the Clemsons and all those. It's some smaller schools, but
Mm-hmm.
you're good enough. Like everybody knows who you are nowadays.
Absolutely. Well, Mason Murphy, right, for the A's, he started at a small D3 in Pennsylvania, not even a powerhouse D3 in Pennsylvania, just kind of, started out there and just kind of took off, man. So, yeah, I mean, find the right fit and find those opportunities. Now, I have one more question for you, man. I just wanted to throw this out as well. And if there's any other questions, throw them in. So I live in a town with a summer college league, the Northwoods League, Kalamazoo Growlers. I used to host some guys. Anyways, you guys probably do a lot of evaluation in the summertime while these guys are in college playing in those summer leagues. So, again, sometimes guys are usually going to kind of get placed a lot by their college teams once they get there. But how important is the summer ball, when you guys are evaluating those college guys?
Yeah, no, that's a great point to bring up. I think the summer ball programs are outstanding. I think it
Yeah.
really, really changes a lot of guys' careers where,
Mm-hmm.
you get 50 games in the spring. It's super competitive. It's always just about, how do I win? Your playing time is how much you're producing. It's professional in a sense. Summer's a lot more laid back, a lot more opportunity to
Mm-hmm.
grow, and just those extra reps, those extra game experiences, a different coach that maybe relates to you a little bit better, or you hear a different voice. And yes, colleges will definitely point you to summer ball programs, but it's on the players too to go find them, find the right
Mm-hmm.
fit. If you don't like where you're going, or if nobody's calling you, or nobody's setting you up, get on the internet, do some research, figure out what opportunities are out there, and figure out how to get yourself playing, into the summer and
Yeah.
getting more of those experiences and getting more reps and just continuing to get better. Yeah, I think summer ball is huge.
And if you're a guy from one of those D3 NAIA type of programs, that summer ball is a great chance for those guys to kind of match up with some of those bigger programs as well. I saw it all the time with the Growlers, guys that were maybe D3 NAIA guys that would come out and just show out, against some of those SEC guys that were in the league. And so that's an opportunity coming from those smaller schools where you can still kind of get some of those looks as well. So
And
awesome.
there's those other college coaches are there, or even if they're not there, I think the other
Yeah,
piece of advice I really want to leave everybody with is if there's nobody at your game, you better still be giving 100% effort because people don't need to be at your game to find out about you.
that's right.
Not be a single person in the crowds, but the umpire knows a college coach, or
Mm-hmm.
the coach on the other team knows a college coach. And they're like, hey, number 7 on that team, you got to go find out about that guy. He looked really
Yeah,
good.
yeah.
So it doesn't matter who's at the park. Always remember that you are trying for that next level every time you take the field.
I love that. That's tremendous advice. That might be a good piece of advice to leave it on. But any other final thoughts, Aaron? Anything else that you kind of came in tonight hoping to pass along? Feel like we kind of covered a lot of it, or anything else you wanted to kind of leave the guys with here tonight?
No, the only thing I would leave everybody with is just, believe in yourself. I kind of like iterated before, throw the haters out. I think a lot of people will tell you you're not good enough. I remember that was a really, really, something that stuck with me for a while. I was
Mm-hmm.
a coach that told me you're not good enough. And, you can look at that advice 2 ways. You could say, all right, that person's right. I'm going to give up, or I'm not going to put in the extra effort. Or you let it fuel you. You
Mm-hmm.
put it on the mirror, you put it on your bulletin board, and you get after it every day to make yourself better and prove people wrong. I think that's the best thing you can do is just have that mindset of, thank you for your advice. Let me prove you wrong.
Yeah, that's great advice. Awesome. Well, Aaron, I appreciate the time, man. This was phenomenal. I'll let you get back to the rest of your evening, man. I'm sure you got a busy schedule coming up. I know we're just probably what, 2 weeks away, probably less than, right, from pitchers and catchers reported.
I head to Florida on Wednesday.
Let's go, man. Well, hey, have a great season this year. I appreciate the time. And if you guys have any questions or need anything, please reach out to us. Thank you all for joining. Click on that survey link on the way out. But Aaron, thanks again. And we'll be in touch, man. If we can maybe get you back on sometime down the road, we'd love to do it. Okay.
Thanks for having me.
Awesome, man. Have a great night. Everybody have a good night. We'll talk to y'all soon. Everybody take care.